is for the way you look at me.
Now, give us the definition of a daddy's girl. What are some of the characteristics of this woman?
Daddy's girls grow up believing that in order to find fulfillment, they need to take care of the men in their lives. And this can look a number of ways. Naturally, you can wind up with the long-suffering wife who is very sacrificial and gives her all for her marriage and her family to such a degree that it creates resentment. But also, bullies can come out of daddy's girls where they're constantly correcting and fixing and controlling, making him do it better. And if you said to this kind of daddy's girl, you're seeking your fulfillment outside yourself because you have to take care of your man, she might just scream and not recognize herself at all. But there's something driving her to be controlling and pushy, and what that is if I can fix him, then I'll be okay.
Now, what draws these two? It's like they're drawn together.
They're like magnets.
Their dysfunction draws them together, and yet it creates problems in the marriage.
It does, because typically it means that one or the other is playing the role of parent. So if a woman is dominant, or if she's taking care of the woman who says, I've got 3 kids at home, when she only has 2, and she's referring to the husband.
Right. She emasculates him when she does that.
She does, but she's enhancing herself at the same time. But love doesn't last in a marriage between a mother and a son. Real marriage, a real foundation for for being able to give to the world, comes from 2 strong peers, not from a mother and a son or a father and a daughter. So a lot of what we're about, I love that, recreating yourself. As we learn ourselves and see these things that have been sabotaging our relationship, then we really have the opportunity to recreate ourselves and recreate our relationship.
It really does help to have an objective, to stand back and look and not assign blame, but to realize you grew up in a home.
Yes.
And your parents had tendencies, and they did things right, they did things wrong, all of which influenced who you are. So you emerge as a mama's boy because your mom, for some reason, just doted on you, you know, and that gave her pleasure, or whatever it was. And so you come to the marriage with that as a background, and the same thing as daddy's girl. And I would think of a daddy's girl more as the curls and ribbons and perfume and the princess. But it doesn't have to be that, does it? It can be the tomboy that hangs out with dad. Okay.
One of the things we love about our book, and a lot of this is we've gotten from the people we've learned from, is when it comes to how to make this better, it's all about the individual taking responsibility for himself or herself. So a wife can get a hold of this and start working on herself and see differences without having to manipulate or fix him, and vice versa.
But a lot of times, people who, they can be very offended if somebody says, oh, you're a mama's boy, you're a daddy's girl, because you don't see your own dysfunction.
Right.
How do you back up to see this about yourself, because you're only going to be defensive if somebody's accusing you? How do you get to a place where you see this in yourself so you can begin to make that personal change?
The way we come at it and getting back to love is, and we just accepted this reality. There's 2 quizzes at the start of the book. Are you a mama's boy? Are you a daddy's girl? And what we expect people are most likely to do is, she's going to take that mama's boy quiz, and she's going to say, that's him. That's who I'm married to. And he's going to take they're going to look at both quizzes, but when he reads through the daddy's girl quiz, he's going to say, that's my wife. And in there, we suggest that if you're seeing this in your partner, assume you are the other, and keep reading.
There's never a mama's boy in a relationship without a daddy's girl. And so a lot of times we do work by identifying the partner, and then we can start seeing our role in all of that.
How can parents work then to not perpetuate this into the next generation?
The same way, by identifying the tendencies in themselves. So I, as a mama's boy, when I started identifying that, it allowed me to create a different kind of relationship with my daughter, even though she was grown. And so, but it has to start with us seeing how that our children are reflecting back to us who we are.
Yeah. I thought it's interesting when you look at our daughters, raising them, and I was I am a doting dad involved, but there was you smile and snicker. But the idea, there was a point, if you can remember, a couple of years ago, where
Yes.
there was the natural migration in those years, and I was glad she was assuming that role, and I didn't feel like it was in some way threatening me.
We were really sensing, and I was working and I was on the road a little bit, and I was sensing I need to be home. My girls are coming into their adolescent teen years, and he was feeling like I need you here. They're getting at a place in a stage where they need mom's influence, so that transition could happen. Yeah, and we've seen the results in our children, you know, and so
That's beautiful.
For that to happen, there has to be mutual respect. That's an important issue. In other words, you have to respect your wife enough to allow the children to go to them.
And you
And
have
vice
to,
versa.
And you have to be willing to grow, to
Yes.
objectively look at yourself and say, you know what, I can be better.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the book is Getting Back to
Wow.
Love,
Great
when the pushing
stuff.
and pulling threatens to tear you apart.
And if by any chance you think that you're a mama's boy or a daddy's girl, or you're married to one, you might want to get a hold of this book.
Yeah, thank you for coming
Thank
in
you
so
so
much.
much.